என்னாச்சு அனிலியா?
Sir, recording on agala sir.
Start. You can go.
ஆயிடுச்சு.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Today's topic for short topic is on prenatal screening and cytogenetics. So the objectives for today's class is we'll start off with a brief introduction. We'll see the screening tests, the invasive tests which are done, and the genetic tests which are done using the samples obtained, and we'll end it up with the take-home message and references. So what is prenatal testing? So as the name suggests, it is basically the detection of abnormalities in a fetus before birth. And a brief history on prenatal testing, it was started in the 1950s, in which amniocentesis was done and the amniotic fluid was taken and a karyotype was done to determine the prenatal sex. So the main indications for prenatal testing is advanced maternal age more than 35 years, previous history of child with chromosome abnormality, family history of chromosome abnormality, a positive maternal serum screening test, and fetal aneuploidy, which is suspected on ultrasound. So we have both screening and diagnostic invasive tests for prenatal testing. So the screening tests are maternal blood serum, prenatal ultrasound, and the newly developed non-invasive prenatal tests. And we have confirmative invasive tests like chorionic villus sampling, amniocentesis, and fetal blood sampling. So we'll first begin with the screening test. So the screening test, the first test which is done is ultrasound test. So we have high resolution real-time scanning done with the help of ultrasound. And as we all know, it uses high frequency sound pulses from a probe which enters into the body and it reflects back after hitting various body surfaces. And the reflected waves are picked up by the probe and we get a different intensities of the echoes on the screen as a 2D image. So we do ultrasound, trans-abdominal ultrasound supplemented with trans-vaginal ultrasonography. So main uses is to evaluate the fetal viability, gestational dating, and to detect several major types of anomalies. So this is just to show certain examples of certain features which can be diagnosed using ultrasonography pertaining to chromosome abnormalities. So we have single gene disorders like in chorioprosencephaly, infantile polycystic kidney disease, etc. And we have disorders which are thought of as multifactorial like cleft lip, clubfoot, congenital heart disease, and neural tube defects, and also certain anomalies which can indicate a syndrome like abnormal genitalia, cystic hygroma, polydactyly, omphalosis, and radial ray defects. So this is just images to show. So holoprosencephaly is basically a cephalic disorder in which the forebrain of the embryo fails to develop between the two hemispheres, resulting in there's a ventricular fusion. So in this image, we're able to see a large anechoic area in the fetal brain. This is an image of a fetus having Holt-Oram syndrome. So this syndrome comprises of limb abnormalities along with congenital heart defects. So here we're able to see the fetus having 3 fingers with an abnormal position of the thumb. Another feature is seen in neural tube defects, in which we're able to see meningomyelocele sac, which is seen to protrude above the skin. So the next important marker is the nuchal translucency. It is generally measured at 11 weeks of gestation, and it is actually a dark, echo-free region which is seen beneath the skin, which is a measure of the fetal subcutaneous neck edema. The normal nuchal translucency is about 0.12 in 11-week fetus. But however, there is increased nuchal translucency seen in certain trisomies like trisomy 21, 18, 13, and 45X fetus. So this is an ultrasound image from a Down syndrome baby showing increased nuchal translucency of about 0.59 centimeter. There are also certain soft markers which we should check for in the ultrasound. So this is taking Down syndrome as an example. So the ultrasound findings of hypoechoic bowel, pilectasis, which is dilation of the renal pelvis, shortening of the limbs, nuchal translucency, and echogenic intracardiac focus with ventricular dilation can be seen. So now, in association with the ultrasound findings, we need to do certain maternal serum tests which will help in the screening. There are different screening tests done for the first trimester and the second trimester. In the first trimester, we do pregnancy-associated plasma protein A and human chorionic gonadotrophin. And in the second trimester, we do maternal serum alpha-fetoprotein, free beta-HCG, unconjugated estriol, and inhibin A. So pertaining to chromosome abnormalities, in the first trimester screening, for the pregnancy-associated plasma protein A, it will be decreased in all the types of the trisomies. And the human chorionic gonadotropin will also be decreased in all types of trisomies, except it will be elevated in trisomy 21. So coming to the second trimester screening test and the important trisomies. So taking the 4 parameters which are evaluated, which is the unconjugated estriol, alpha-fetoprotein, free beta-HCG, and inhibin A, which altogether constitutes as a quadruple test. So in the trisomies, those values are all decreased, except in trisomy 21, where the free beta-HCG and inhibin A levels are increased. And in neural tube defects, we should remember that alpha-fetoprotein levels are generally increased. Alpha-fetoprotein indicates that the fetal integument is not intact in some places. So this screening test, the most common strategy that is followed is we combine the ultrasound findings along with the maternal serum test in order to determine whether an invasive test is indicated or not. So now coming on to the invasive test. So first is amniocentesis. So amniocentesis is the most common procedure which is performed for prenatal diagnosis, and it is generally done between 15 to 20 weeks of gestation. So the main indications are advanced maternal age, positive maternal serum screening test, elevated AFP levels, family history of neural tube defects and chromosome abnormalities, ultrasound suspicion of Down syndrome or chromosome abnormalities, and for any congenital infections. So the technique is as follows. First, initially a thorough ultrasound examination is done to confirm the fetal viability, to evaluate for the fetal anatomy, to rule out multiple gestation, to assess the gestational age, to assess the overall amniotic fluid volume, and to locate the placenta. After all this is checked, we then select an appropriate site of needle entry, and using a 22 gauge spinal needle, we enter into the amniotic sac, and 20 to 30 ml of amniotic fluid is collected for the testing. The next invasive test which is done is a chorionic villus sampling. So as the name suggests, we obtain a small amount of chorionic villi for testing. And the primary advantage of chorionic villus sampling is that it can be done at an earlier age of about 10 to 12 weeks of gestation itself. The indications are similar to that of amniocentesis, but however, biochemical tests like alpha-fetoprotein levels cannot be determined using this sample. The main technique is that we're able to do it transcervically using a speculum and a long metal stillet, or we can do it transabdominally using a 20 gauge needle. So coming to amniocentesis, what we saw. So amniocentesis, after we obtain the sample, it is centrifuged, then the cells are taken, and then it should be cultured, and only after that we can do the karyotyping and other tests. But on the other hand, chorionic villi, we have in the fetal tertiary villi, we have the fetal cells. So directly these cells can be subjected to karyotyping, and the results will be available earlier when compared to amniotic fluid evaluation. The next invasive test is fetal blood sampling, which was started in 1985. It is also known as percutaneous umbilical blood sampling or chordocentesis, and it is generally performed after 20 weeks of gestation because that is when the umbilical blood vessels will be of appropriate size. So the main indications for fetal blood sampling is rapid karyotype, fetal red cell immunization, fetal acid-base balance, intrauterine fetal infections, immunological deficiencies or coagulation factor deficiencies, and hemoglobinopathies. So the technique, as we saw for amniocentesis, initially a thorough systematic ultrasound is done, and we use a 22 gauge needle which is inserted transabdominally into the uterine wall to the umbilical cord. Preferably, umbilical vein is entered because it has a thinner wall, less spiraling course, and a much larger diameter. And sample of blood is then aspirated and sent for testing. So these invasive tests which we saw above have a small chance of miscarriage for the fetus. So because of that, there was more testing and done, and it was newly found out that there are certain cells from the fetus which are found in the maternal circulation. So these fetal cells which are seen are mainly the trophoblastic cells, the fetal nucleated red blood cells, the lymphocytes, and certain stem cells. These cells were then analyzed, and the detection of aneuploidies and single gene mutations were possible using this. So these fetal cells were separated from the maternal blood using immunomagnetic cell sorting technique and the principle of flow cytometry as well. But however, the limitation for this is that very few number of fetal cells were available in the maternal circulation. So hence this particular technique is not very practical to be used. So another advantage, new thing which was found out was fetal cell-free DNA, which is seen in the maternal circulation, reported in 1997. So what is this cell-free fetal DNA? It is basically short segments of the fetal DNA, about 50 to 300 base pairs in length, which are seen from the in the maternal plasma. So what is the origin of this fetal DNA? So basically they say that the placenta continuously undergoes apoptosis, and during apoptosis there is shrinkage of the chromatin, there's chromatin condensation, formation of apoptotic body, and when there's lysis of this apoptotic body, these nuclear debris with the nuclear material will be sent into the maternal circulation, and from that the cell-free fetal DNA can be isolated. Another alternative technique which is done for patients who are having repeated pregnancy loss and who are opting for in vitro fertilization is pre-implantation genetic diagnosis. So generally these cells are taken and we analyze for serious childhood onset diseases or any chromosomal aneuploidy, which is a major factor for implantation failure and spontaneous abortion. So the steps are as follows. Initially, there is ovarian stimulation for the in vitro fertilization. And on the third day of blastomere formation, a cell is taken, subjected to genetic analysis, and the unaffected embryo is then transferred to the mother. So now coming on to the genetic tests which are done. So these are the main genetic tests which are done, mainly the cytogenetic tests like karyotyping and FISH. And we have molecular genetic tests like chromosome microarray, quantitative fluorescent PCR, next generation sequencing, and few other tests also which will be discussed. So first we have karyotyping. So karyotype or karyogram is a display of chromosomes which are ordered according to the length. So as we all know, humans have 46 chromosomes as 23 pairs, and out of that we have 22 pairs of autosomes and a pair of sex chromosomes, which are denoted as XY in males and XX in females. So using karyotyping, we can detect both numerical and structural abnormalities in the chromosomes. So the main indications for karyotyping will be a late maternal age, previous history of chromosome anomaly or stillbirth, positive maternal serum screening test, if there is any risk of chromosome breakage syndrome, and intracytoplasmic sperm injection pregnancies, which will be increasing the probability of chromosome abnormalities. So the technique will be as follows. So the sample we take will be a rapidly dividing cell which has a nucleus, and these cells are stimulated to undergo division in vitro. Since maximum chromosome condensation is seen at metaphase, karyotyping should generally be done at this particular phase. So the steps of karyotyping are as follows. So initially we take the sample in a culture growth medium and we stimulate mitosis. Then we add the chemical called colchicine. This colchicine will help to stop the mitosis in the metaphase. These cells are then transferred into a tube and centrifuged to concentrate the layers, and these cells are then transferred to a fixative. Then these cells are added to a slide and we stain using the Giemsa stain most commonly used. We then identify the chromosomes under a microscope and then arrange them according to the karyotype. So this is a normal human karyotype in which we're able to see the 22 autosomes and 2 sex chromosomes. So these are some abnormal karyotype examples. So we're able to see at the trisomy, at the 21st position of the chromosomes, there are 3 chromosomes seen indicating trisomy 21. And this is the karyotype of a male which has an extra X chromosome seen in Klinefelter syndrome. This is another chromosomal abnormality known as Fragile X syndrome, which shows discontinuity in the staining of the X chromosome. However, karyotyping has a few limitations, being difficulty in culturing of the fetal cells, the maternal cell contamination in the sample, that it is a very labor-intensive process, and because of a longer turnaround time, there is increased psychological burden for the mother, and because of that, there is late termination of pregnancy should that be decided. So the next genetic test which is done is fluorescent in situ hybridization, which is a bridge between cytogenetics and molecular genetics. So in this, we use specific fluorescent labeled DNA probes, which will help to detect submicroscopic deletions associated with various syndromes, as well as help to detect prenatal aneuploidies. So the technique is as follows. So we have a double stranded DNA of interest, which is taken and then heated. So that helps in denaturation, which is separation of the DNA strands. Then this is allowed to cool and we add a fluorescent label probe which is complementary to this particular segment. So normally it should bind, but however, if there is any deletion, then this binding will not take place, and if there is a duplication, then there will be excessive binding which takes place. So these are certain reports of FISH. So in this case, the red color fluorescent probe is for chromosome 21, and we are able to see 3 in number, indicating trisomy 21 or Down syndrome. And similarly here, chromosome 30, which is a green color label probe, we are able to see 3 in number, which is indicating trisomy 13 Patau syndrome. However, FISH also has a few limitations. So FLISH generally it will detect the chromosomal DNA abnormalities in the probe which is complementary to that particular DNA. That area it will detect. But however, the adjacent areas, structural abnormalities and numerical abnormalities will not be able to be detected, and it requires a good viable cell population in order to establish conclusive results. The next test which is done is multiplex ligation dependent probe amplification. So this test, it commonly employs DNA hybridization, DNA ligation, and PCR amplification. And it will help to detect minor deletions and duplications which are too large to be detected by PCR and too small to be detected using FISH. It is commonly used only in intellectual disability disorders. Next, coming on to Southern blotting. So Southern blotting, it combines the electrophoresis technique and helps to separate the DNA fragments onto a filter membrane, which is then detected using probe hybridization. But however, newer methods like next generation sequencing have now replaced this technique. So coming on to the next technique, which is chromosome microarray analysis. So this will help to detect genomic abnormalities which have not been detected before. So it can be used to detect new microdeletions which are not detected in karyotype, and also helps to evaluate learning disability and congenital syndromes. So the technique will be, we take a test sample and a reference sample and we add these appropriate fluorescent labels to it. So these both are allowed to mix together and they're hybridized onto a oligoarray slides which contain numerous wells. So then we evaluate the copy number change. So if there's normal test and reference ratio should be equal to 1. So this is seen by the yellow color well. And suppose there is a duplication, then the test will be more. So the test reference value will be more than 1. So because of that, we have a green color well here. Vice versa happens in deletion, where there will be the reference will be more. So we'll be able to get a red color signal in that particular well. So there are few limitations of chromosome microarray analysis is that if there is a balanced translocation, it will not be able to be helpful, and also it will not give results in positional information of the chromosomes. The next test is quantitative fluorescent-based PCR. So it uses generally uncultured fetal cells. The main principle of this test is that we use polymorphic short tandem repeats, which are specific for each type of chromosome. So what is these short tandem repeats? So these are basically hypervariable regions in the genome with repeated elements of about 2 to 7 base pairs. So like this, for example, we're able to see this particular repeated base pairs in this particular segment of the genome. So how is this done? So same as above, we take the 2 DNA strands, it is done denatured, and here we have to add a fluorescent substance. And then we add a primer, and with the help of DNA polymerase, the complementary strand is formed. But here, as it is formed, the fluorescent substance will come and bind as the bonds are forming. And so at the end of the extension phase, we'll be able to see maximum fluorescence. And this is the stage which we should do the measurement of the fluorescent intensities. So the interpretation will be as follows. So in a normal sample, we'll be able to see 2 peaks of fluorescent intensities in the ratio of 1:1, corresponding to the 2 alleles at each specific short tandem repeat locus. But in abnormal samples, like for example, taking trisomy samples, we'll be able to see 3 peaks with similar fluorescent intensities in the ratio 1:1, or we'll be able to see 2 peaks with a ratio of 2:1, a longer allele and a shorter allele. So this is the QF-PCR, which is done in a patient having Down syndrome for the chromosome 21, showing 3 peaks. So the advantages of this quantitative fluorescent PCR is that we can detect it early in gestation, so it helps for rapid testing. And if there is maternal cell contamination, it can be easily be identified, and lots of additional clinical information can also be helped to detect. The next test we have is next generation sequencing, which is used to find the causative genes in the number of Mendelian disorders. It helps to find the small single nucleotide variants, and also small insertions and deletions can be identified using next generation sequencing. So as we all know, the DNA has 4 nuclear bases, being cytosine, guanine, adenine, and thymine. So just brief on the next generation sequencing in steps. So first we have the DNA of interest, which is then subjected to fragmentation. So then each of these fragments, we add oligonucleotides, which will help the particular segment of the gene to bind to the microarray, the chip, which is called the flow cell. So this flow cell has complementary sequences on it. So this DNA of interest binds to it, and the next step which happens is called bridge amplification. So this DNA will bind to the complementary DNA on the same flow cell. With the help of a primer and DNA polymerase, the complementary strand is then synthesis, and this process keeps repeating until we have a number of copies of the DNA of interest. So then we take that particular segment, we add a primer and fluorescent labeled nucleobases, as we saw adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine, which are fluorescent labeled with different colors, are then added. So then based on the sequence of the primary genome, the appropriate nucleobases will be added. So if it is adenine, then thymine, which is labeled with blue color, will be added. So when thymine is added, we'll get a blue color fluorescent intensity. Same way, if for guanine, when cytosine is added, we'll get a red color intensity. So based on the colors which are obtained, we'll able to get the complementary nucleobase sequence. And using bioinformatics technique, we can compare it with the reference genome and identify even tiny nucleotide variants. So a variant of next generation sequencing is called the targeted sequencing. So this is just we take a single gene or a panel of genes and we analyze it. So just a brief to how to differentiate it. If suppose next generation sequencing is we're analyzing A to Z. Targeted sequencing, we're just targeting A and B alone and analyzing it. So this will help to minimize the cost and also it will help to minimize the time. Finally, we have whole genome sequencing, which is a very comprehensive method for analyzing the entire genome. In this, both the exons and the introns are completely analyzed, and it will help to provide more precise diagnosis and help to improve the counseling of the families. So this is just with what we saw above only. So we have non-invasive prenatal testing, which has become the norm in various developed countries. So what they do is they take the maternal plasma, extract the cell-free fetal DNA, subject it to sequencing techniques, and get a detailed analytical report, which will then help in counseling of the parents. So the current trend is that prenatal testing initially for wherever available high-risk pregnancies directly go for non-invasive prenatal testing. And if it is positive, it is confirmed using the invasive tests. On the other hand, if not available, they do the first trimester screening, as we saw the ultrasound and the maternal serum test. And if positive, it can be confirmed using non-invasive tests, or directly, if not available, we can do the invasive tests. So a brief on the future of prenatal testing. So it says that next generation sequencing of RNA can also be subjected because mature RNA contains coding sequence expressed in all the genes. So we can use the RNA in the future for various diagnostic applications. So this is just a trial. It has not been proved yet. So finally, coming to the take-home message, we have to determine various genetic disorders properly, which will help to make families to take informed reproductive decisions. And also, as healthcare providers, we should be aware of the spectrum of the genetic conditions and the appropriate testing methods to obtain the specific diagnosis. These are my references. Thank you very much.
Very good, Anelia. Excellent. I think, yeah, very well illustrated and very well explained.
And most recently advanced.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
Very nice. We have Dr. Tina here from
Yes,
Human Genetics. Very kind of you, Tina,
Yes,
to have come over. Tina, hi. Are you there, Tina?
Who invited her?
Tina?
From yourself.
Ma'am, I invited, sir. Tina, ma'am, helped me a lot with the presentation.
Yeah.
Great,
Yeah,
Anelia.
so yesterday,
Just be like this.
Yes, because Tina is doing it, she can throw a lot more light, and I think she helped Anelia with the presentation. I think Dr. Sai Shalini, they coordinated.
Light on her camera. Tina, come on.
Tina,
Anelia,
tell us. Yeah.
Anelia,
Yes, ma'am.
you can add one more thing when the
Yes,
in the
ma'am.
indication.
Yes,
When the
ma'am.
parent is a carrier,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, that you left out. That
Okay,
also
ma'am.
you can add.
Sure, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Tina, you want to say something? Hi.
Hi, Tina, come on.
Okay, Sai Shalini, anything you want to tell? I think it is almost complete. I can't think of anything else that has to be added. What about spectral karyotyping and other related tests? I mean, do they
Yes,
help?
ma'am.
Yeah.
They help, but I feel sequencing they're more specific.
The more
so
specific.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah. So you have to choose a
And
targeted
what are the
sequence.
tests that are carried in our institute? Did you ask the genetics people? What are all the tests that can be done in our institute?
Yes, ma'am. We do karyotyping here. FISH is done. The MLPA is also done. Then next generation sequencing is done, but southern blotting is not done because next generation sequencing has overtaken that.
Is the next generation sequencing done here or is it outsourced?
I am not sure.
Genome is there inside. They are doing, I think, ma'am. There is some
No,
facility.
we have the MySeq, but I'm not sure whether they're doing the test in there. Maybe they have started.
don't
It is
do it,
not
madam.
done here, ma'am.
They are
Interpretation they are
outsourcing
doing.
it, ma'am. They are outsourcing
Okay.
it.
Outsourcing it to Bangalore, my change.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
But we have the NGS machine. Unfortunately, it's very costly to operate and they are not using it.
Anelia, just wanted to ask
Yes,
you
ma'am.
one question, Rakanna,
Yes,
which you
ma'am.
have already mentioned it in your presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
But before that, it was a very extensive and beautiful presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
It was like a mind-blowing presentation, in fact. So I just wanted to ask you, what are the tests to do for larger deletions? If there is larger deletions, what are the tests could be done? Not all the tests. You can't do all the tests for larger deletions. You've already
Yes,
mentioned in your presentation.
We can do MLPM, a multi-ligation dependent probe assay, which will help to detect those tests, ma'am.
Then?
And even chromosome microarray, I think, will help to detect unknown deletions. So that can be evaluated using chromosome microarray as well. QF-PCR also can help.
Exactly, that's what you've already mentioned. NGS, PCR amplification, especially the multiplex PCR, and southern blot analysis. So these are the few tests which can be done for larger insertions or larger structural rearrangements, deletions, and of course for the triple repeat expansions also.
Yes, ma'am.
Larger deletions will be seen in karyotyping also, Anelia. Regular karyotyping.
Yes, ma'am. But only the known things we'll be able to evaluate using
Exactly.
karyotyping. What is unknown, if there's any new mutation, we won't be able to see.
Lina, Tina is back, I think.
Yeah, Tina, can you just throw us some light?
I have
Tina?
to disagree with
Yeah,
the
thank you for
previous-
coming, first of all. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Yeah.
inviting me. With regard to the question that was just asked right now, no, a karyotype is actually an advantage where you can...
Tina, can you just speak into the mic? I'm not able to hear you. Yeah, Tina?
You hear me now, ma'am?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
I request all of the others to switch off the mic or unmute. Mute the mic.
Yeah. So the
You
previous
carry on,
question,
Tina.
yeah. So the previous question was whether a karyotype can look at large deletions or duplications. The answer is yes, and that's one of the advantages of karyotyping, because when you don't have a diagnosis, a karyotype can help you get those deletions and duplications. However, anything less than 5 MB of genomic information that is deleted or duplicated cannot be picked up by a karyotype. So that answers the previous question, and I think I missed a couple of questions before.
Thank you, Tina, because I thought large deletions could be picked up in karyotyping, but you say smaller bases, probably you need more supersonic measures. Correct. I think there were a couple of other
either
questions
MLP
also.
or a microarray for that. Yeah.
I have
Tina
a
is
question
here.
to Mary Anelia. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Now everything is very simple. If you go to the genetics department, everything is organized and you would have seen all those things. But this is out of historic importance. The regular karyotyping, after the metaphase spread, with colchicine, these are all development. So probably 20 years, 10 years back or 15 years back, how did they arrange the typical karyotyping picture in your what you see in your Robbins or other things? This is out of historical importance, which I used to see it in the genetics department. Can you?
Based on the length, they arrange from the largest to the smallest.
How did they arrange? They do a metaphase spread. You would have visited genetic department, no? You would have seen it. Now the arrangement is so easy. But in the evolution, how it was done. That's how when I did my PG, they used to, you may not know, I'll tell you. They take photographs under microscope, okay? The metaphase spread. Then physically they cut it with scissors and paste it and then see. Such a tedious procedure once upon a time. That was the karyotyping when I was doing my PG. Now you see the development in the genetic department. Tina, are you here? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here, ma'am.
Am I
Yes,
correct,
ma'am, I'm here,
Tina?
ma'am.
Am I
Yes,
correct?
ma'am, you're correct, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes, you're correct.
yeah. That's how we saw karyotyping. Now you have all seen what is happening in the genetic department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anilya, not only by the length, but also by the band. That's why it is called the gene banding technique. You
Yes,
have
ma'am.
to stain with GIMSA. So
Yes,
it is
ma'am.
called as gene banding technique.
Yes, ma'am.
That's how we did karyotyping.
Thank you.
Tina, who is the moderator, Anelia?
Pavitra, ma'am.
Pavitra. Yeah, Pavitra. Tina, you want to add anything else, Tina? Anything from
Not really, because
something which
I think Anelia has
you would
done a
want to?
tremendous job. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Pavitra, go ahead and ask questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Avi?
Yes, ma'am. So the first question to Faika.
Everybody put on the videos. Videos on. Faika.
Yes, sir.
Faika, what are the indications for prenatal testing, Faika?
Ma'am, age of the mother, ma'am. And then if there is a previous child which has abnormalities or family history, ma'am. And if the
Family
mother
history.
is a carrier, then we can do prenatal testing.
It is the
Age, have
age.
you said?
Age, ma'am. Then we have the family history, ma'am.
What
Then
is the age?
35, sir.
Super.
Next question. Next question to Vidya. What are the invasive? Vidya, you?
Yes,
Vidya?
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
What are the
ma'am.
invasive tests done in prenatal diagnosis?
Amniocentesis, then chorionic villus sampling, and fetal blood sampling.
Super.
Super.
Okay. Sibi Priya?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Cytogenetic test, fish chromosome microarray, and PCR, next generation sequencing, and karyotyping, ma'am.
Good. Okay. Next question is to Harsha.
We can use colchicine or greaseophilin.
Colchicine?
That is the one which is commonly used, or alternative can be greaseophilin.
That's
நம்ம
news to
அடுத்த
me.
வார்த்தை ஏதோ நீனே பேசிக்கணும்.
Ada, that's really a news to me.
என்ன சொன்னா ரீசெண்டா என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க?
Sir, alternate can be in some books. It has been given, sir. Greaseophilin.
Greaseophilin. Okay.
Greaseophilin. Okay. Antifungal drug, no? What, Tina, is that the one? Tina can tell us. Tina? Okay.
Tina, do they use greaseophilin instead of colchicine to arrest in the metaphase? இல்ல இப்ப யூஸ் ஆகாட்டி பரவாயில்ல, முன்னாடி யூஸ் பண்ணுவாங்களா?
Ma'am has message, sir, not used now.
Not being used.
Yeah, only colchicine. Okay.
It's only colchicine.
Very good. Okay.
Okay. Praveen?
Ma'am, in this karyotype image, we can see there is 3 chromosomes in chromosome number 30. So trisomy 13 is there.
Okay. So what is it about?
Patau syndrome.
That's it. Thank you.
What is trisomy 18?
And one more thing.
Edwards.
One more thing to this case. he mentioned various types. Please remember one or two diseases for each. For example, what test is preferred for X-linked disorder? I'm seeing here in the Google methylation specific PCR is very good for X-linked disorder. So what are the diseases identified by next generation sequencing? Like that, for each type, you remember one or two diseases. Likely.
Yes.
Bye-bye.